the technical skills. It was also the cultural fit and the work ethic, I guess, I was kind of looking for. And having that for me was very much trust them to do it. I have that open line of communication, and I try to let that empower them to do their role and know that if they are stuck, they can come to me and we can kind of work through it together.
Welcome to this week's Lessons with Leaders. I'm joined with Claude Compere from Wagonex. He's the head of engineering who's kindly jumped on. I'm sure everyone's excited to see what we're going to discuss on this week's topics. If you could introduce yourself, give me a bit of an overview on your background and let the listeners hear all about you, if that's okay, Claude.
Yeah, perfect. Cheers, Nathan. Yeah, so Claude, currently head of engineering for Wagonex. Wagonex, we're a software company based in Cardiff, providing leasing companies, dealerships, and OEMs kind of an online platform to offer car subscriptions and different variations of getting like leasing, etc. So currently been with Wagonex, almost 2 years, just over 2 years, kind of the whole process. I was brought in to kind of bring the tech team internal, so in-house. Previously to me, it was all outsourced. So the first guy the first line of code was written by an outsourced company, and they managed it up until that point. So with me coming on board, was working with the CTO to bring it all internal. Um, Previously to Wagon X, I've worked for various kind of industries in fintech, events, call center software, uh, but started off my career actually as a graphic designer. Um, and yeah, I went to uni to do graphic design and kind of took everything a digital way, basically. So in that, I would get a brief and basically, as well as designing it, I would build it. So be that a website, an app, an interactive magazine, and kind of then just fell into software and tech naturally from that.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks for that. We'll get stuck straight in with the questions if that's all right. One
Yeah.
I'd like to open up with is what does a typical day look like for yourself as a tech leader, and what challenges do you face?
Ooh, good question. So for me, it's probably varies day to day because we're a startup. We're quite a small team. So when I first come on, it was there was 12 external engineers, QA testers, product design, and with me coming on, as I said, was to bring it in-house. And what we found was we would replace every person in-house we brought in would replace 2 to 3 externals. Which is quite interesting. And so within that, it was managing both an external team plus an internal team, and it was very much the typical stand-ups, kind of run through kind of that, work with the head of product, and kind of define the roadmap. Because when we came in and it was kind of we were they got us to a good place, but we had to kind of take it the next stage further. So over the course of being the head of engineering, it's kind of changed a lot. These days, because we are just the internal team now, it's very much still the typical stand up with the guys, make sure they're unblocked, working through with the head of product to kind of define what the next kind of features we were going to look for, researching any of our third-party services. So it really does depend day to day. I'd say being that kind of smaller team at the minute is sometimes a bit firefighting. If we have a little bit of, so if there's a bug coming in, I'm the one to jump onto it, and I'm still very much a hands-on technical leader. So yeah, supporting the guys, but not still afraid to get stuck in.
Yeah, no, that's good. I was going to ask, how do you, I guess, drive and motivate and empower your team's collaboration, being such a small team under, I guess, a larger identity? How do you empower that within the teams?
Yeah, so it's a good question because I think empowerment comes from trust. So I very much like the Leon, our CTO, trusts me. to kind of just get on and have the autonomy to do my role. I kind of do that with the guys as well. Um, so a lot of it with when we were recruiting for the internal team, it was not just the technical skills, it was also the cultural fit and the work ethic, I guess, I was kind of looking for. And having that for me was very much trust them to do it. I have that open line of communication and I try to let that empower them to do their role and know that if they are stuck, they can come to me and we can kind of work through it together, but also just allows us to um, kind of, yeah, allows them to think of outside the box a little bit so they're not too strict. Yes, we have our kind of defined coding standards and kind of procedures we do on our pipelines, but I'm very much trusting in them to get the outcome that we want. It's more about the outcome than how they got there.
Good. That's good answer. Thank you. And reflecting back over your career, is there anything in particular that stands out that may have been, I don't know, a mistake you may have made and kind of you reflected on that and I kind of how does that kind of redefine where you're at in, I guess, the stage of your career today?
Ooh, mistakes. So owning your mistakes is definitely something I like to try and kind of do and try and instill that in anyone I kind of have and lead. Um, Kind of a no blame culture, but it's definitely overall there's kind of been a good learning curve. I think coming into Wagon X, I th I don't know if it's a hard one to say mistake, but one thing I definitely took as a learning curve and a so I'd done remote working and remote leading in my previous role, but coming in and having a full outsourced team that was not just outsourced, they were on a different time zone, a different continent, and that was very challenging. Um, Kind of, especially because I was coming in as the new kid on the block, and it was kind of, I'm coming in to kind of change things and make things scale and grow for the platform and for the company. And it was very much a challenge because I had to try and get them on board and it was there was a few little hurdles we had. So one of the first things we did was a code freeze the first month when I joined, and within that first month, Joel, the head of product, and Leon, the CTO, we kind of looked with the team to get their buy-in of what we could change, and within that was all the development processes, the pipelines, and they were coming up with kind of scenarios and issues in their head before they've even faced them. And that was very much challenging um, from that perspective. So to overcome it, we kind of had to use their buy-in and to allow them to invest in the process as well. But I think leading off of the back of that, I think the challenge actually came and the mistake was always being around for them, um, which is an interesting one because from that, I mean, because of the time zone difference, we had to both trust each other. But I was literally available 24 hours a day on through Slack, which they kind of got used to, uh, which then impacted kind of the work-life balance. And I didn't want them to also feel like they had to do it when it was on the reverse for them to work up or be available, say 11 p.m. because 11 p.m. to us was kind of like 4 a.m. there for them. So that was probably one of the biggest things recently that's definitely shaped my career is to make sure I instill in the people I lead the work-life balance, just like I want to as well.
Good. It's definitely a hot topic at the moment as well. A lot of candidates we're getting approached by obviously want that work-life balance now. And I think, yeah, remote working and managing remote teams is definitely a challenging topic for most leaders.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's so when we were recruiting for the internal team, the one criteria we had, like I said, about building the culture was actually having hybrid working. We're a remote first company, but we always wanted the first team especially to want to come into the office to build that culture. So it did put off a lot of people. when we were chatting to them on that first stage interview, even though it was specified, um, when we did have that chat and we were saying, oh, it's 1 to 2 days a week in Cardiff and it will eventually drop. Like now, my team only come in probably once a month. Um, I go in quite often, but it was just to build that initial team, build the initial culture and trust. And that was really much of a challenge. Was that because, like you said, people want that work-life balance. They want the hybrid or fully remote working. There are benefits, and there's to hybrid working and remote working from an engineer's perspective, but there's also drawbacks then because you get very detached from sometimes the company and the overall mission of the culture of the company.